So I just wanted to thank everybody for coming out to the first of the Young Democrats of Orange County's debate series that we're going to be doing.
First of all, I would like to thank the Young Democrats of Orange County for putting this together. This is a great opportunity for all of you to hear the four of us, and I hope this is the first of many. My name is Chuck O'Neill, and I am not a politician. I am a private businessman and a public advocate. And as a businessman, when there's a conflict, I go back to the original contract. So when it comes to this government, this state government, and there's a conflict, I say, let's go back to the original document, which is the Declaration of Independence. And in that document, it says that governments are instituted among men, deriving their just powers from the consent of the governed. The consent of the governed.
Thank you, Chuck. That's the thing.
Thank you. We'll get more into this later. Thank you.
One intended to do. So I will work to achieve those goals.
Wow. It's difficult to work with the Senate leadership when the Senate leadership is of the Republican variety. And this was the problem last year, and it's the problem the year before. The issue is, how do you get proper funding for the Florida Forever program? And I think you have to be able and ready to go to the mat, to be a strong advocate. It's not a matter of casting a vote, because the vote won't come up fairly. So you have to be able and ready to go at odds with the Republican leadership in the Senate if, again, it becomes a Republican-led body.
Mr. O'Neill, next question. Solar power. Florida Power and Light and other corporate monopolies across the state show how we, the consumer, not only receive our utilities, but also how we potentially create our utilities. Constitutional Amendment Consumers for Smart Solar, which will be on the ballot in November, is backed by companies like FPL and continues big utilities' grip on the power market. A different solar power amendment will be voted on in August, which was placed on the ballot by the legislature. The question is, what do you think is the biggest difference between the two amendments, and do you support either?
Thank you, Ernest. I do support the August amendment. And what that does is, for businesses, it removes the assessment for solar equipment installed on a business. So, for instance, if you're a big box store and you put solar panels on the top, it would not increase your assessment. So that's a good step forward. The one problem is with the amendment in November. That one is a complete fraud. I don't want to make sure that, I do want to make sure that everyone in the audience knows that that was placed there by the utility companies. It was placed there for the sole purpose of defeating a good amendment, which is Floridians for Solar Choice. And that amendment was unable to get on the ballot largely because of the efforts of Florida Power and Light Duke Energy. The one thing that we have to watch out for when, for instance, Leila, when we talk about Amendment 1, Amendment 1 in 2014 was a good thing. This amendment is also going to be Amendment 1 on the November ballot. So I hope we we all understand that November 1, or Amendment 1 in this November is a complete fraud, and hopefully it will go down in big numbers.
Thank you.
This is a very basic question, but at this point, I think the science community, the academic community, and the Democratic Party have come to a consensus that fracking is detrimental to our earth and detrimental to our communities, especially in lower income communities. Do you support banning fracking in the state of Florida?
I absolutely, without a doubt, am in support of a ban on fracking in the state of Florida. Our karst geography is basically a limestone sponge, and shooting toxic chemicals into that sponge in which we draw our water is insane. Representative Bracy did send out a newsletter in which he said, talking about fracking, that didn't happen this year, and now we can work on an effort to appropriately regulate fracking in a way that protects our people and our water from what I believe has been proven to be a dangerous process. So this is his newsletter that he's looking forward to working on a way to appropriately regulate fracking.
Representative Bracy, would you like to respond?
Okay, I think this will segue to a good off-scripted question. There are a lot of frustrations right now within people within the Democratic Party that the Democrats in the state legislature operating under a supermajority Republican administration give too much, and they're not necessarily fighting for any issues. If you would be elected a senator in this upcoming election, you would still be operating with a majority Republican Florida House and a Republican executive administration that has a very polar opposite goal and objective in Tallahassee. So under these conditions, what is it beyond working with each other that you will do as a state senator to fight for the issues that people expect you to fight for?
I'll give you an example of how I worked with the Republican leadership. In 2013, I was very concerned about the state of our springs and the state of our aquifer. And together with former Governor Bob Graham, we put on an event called Speak Up Wekiva. And we held that at Wekiva State Park. Over 1,200 people showed up. It's hard to get 1,200 Orlando people to go anywhere, even for free. And because these 1,200 people showed up in a place that just so happened to be in Senator David Simmons' district, about a month later, Senator Simmons called me into his office, and he said, "Chuck, how do we clean up the springs?" And that was the beginning of the Florida Springs and Aquifer Protection Act. And Senator Simmons became a champion for the springs. So it's not just a matter of conceding and going along, you have to lead. My answer to the restoration of rights for returning citizens is fairly simple. We have to get rid of the current governor. And we have to vote in a Democratic governor in 2018. A large group of people got together to propose a constitutional amendment to do just this. And to overcome that hurdle of getting 673,000 signatures proved near impossible. The truth is, on the first day in office, the next governor, with the stroke of her pen, can accomplish this. And Once in the Senate, I plan on doing everything in my power to make sure that the next governor of this state is a Democrat.
The City of Orlando and other municipalities across the state are in the process of or have already passed ordinances in the step to decriminalize small amounts of marijuana. Efforts have been applauded by progressive organizations for leading the charge, especially since arrests for possessing small amount of marijuana are disproportionately higher in less affluent and minority communities. State and municipal law enforcement agencies are fighting back against such local ordinances because they believe they're saying that we need uniformity in law. The state level obviously has refused to act on marijuana. So the question is, do you support statewide decriminalization of marijuana?
I do support the statewide decriminalization of small amounts of marijuana. I think a person of color is 3.71 times as likely to be arrested for this offense. That statistic in and of itself is a condemnation of our current legal system. Marijuana laws were originated around the Gulf of Mexico in the 1930s to do one thing, and that is to put people of color in jail for no other reason than they possessed a substance. The fact that this prohibition has been able to survive 80 years is incredible. It needs to come to an end. It needs to go the way of prohibition in the 1920s. It is destroying people's lives. It is creating a featherbed for a crime because it is putting high profits in the hands of people who illegally deal in the drugs. So yes, absolutely. And I believe Carlos and I both testified before the City of Orlando. Carlos said he would propose a decriminalization bill in the House. And I seconded that motion, saying I would sponsor that bill in the Senate. Thank you.